This is Doomlings, a cozy little card game about the end of the world. I bet that sounds scary, but it's not. It's an adorable little adventure where players will try to build the strongest species they can before the planet they inhabit is destroyed. I'm sure it sounds complicated, but it's actually so easy you can learn the game in about 5 minutes. I'll tell you what, let's get it out on the table and take a look. All right, this game was a lot of fun. Let's dive right in, starting with the game box. Now, this has a unique little foil print on it with these multicolored letters. It really pops in the right light, and I love the little art of the Doomlings right up front and center. When we flip the box over, we see a brief description of the game, but no real indicator of what the cards themselves look like until we open that box. And inside, we will find a handy cardboard organizer that keeps your 3 primary card types separated neatly. But this game offers expansions, so you can actually remove that cardboard insert to make space for all of your new cards without having to worry about buying a new storage solution. I thought that was really nice forward thinking in the design there. Now let's move on to the game itself. Now, as I said when I was discussing the organizer in the box, players will be mainly using 3 types of cards to play this game. The first type being the traits, this big stack here. This is the stack of cards that players will be dealt their initial hand from and draw from throughout the game. Then come the ages. Now, these signify the rounds. To play a game, players will shuffle 9 random age cards in with 3 random catastrophe cards. As they play throughout the rounds, players will draw these age cards, and they will provide them with unique rule modifiers for that round. Now, as players are going through these ages, they will eventually draw catastrophe cards, and these will universally harm all players, with the third one signifying the end of the world. And that's when players will add up their score from all of the traits that they played in their trait pile to determine a winner. Now, that third card that I mentioned that players will be using is this. This is their gene pool card. And this is more of a tracker to help players keep track of how many cards they're allowed to have in their hand when they stabilize at the end of every turn. So for instance, each player will always start with 5 cards in their gene pool, which is their hand of cards. When they play a card, they will now be down to 4 cards in their hand, so before they can end their turn, they will need to stabilize by drawing another card. Now, throughout the game, players will be able to take actions against each other, causing them sometimes to trade off these traits from their trait pool, discard them, trade off cards through their hands, all kinds of unique little actions, and not all of them necessarily aggressive, but it does mean that players will be bouncing off each other throughout the game in a fun and exciting way. Now, the traits themselves have just this lovely whimsical art on them. Now, you'll notice that the Doomlings themselves or traits are actually depicted kind of as nondescript orbs. A lot of what you're creating as far as a life form is best when left up to the imagination, because sometimes you mix up a lot of these traits and it sounds like a monstrosity. But these traits will give you certain actions that you can either take against other players or take to benefit yourself throughout the rounds, and others will have actions that come into effect at the end of the game, usually giving you a really nice score boost. Now, some of these even have unique features, like here's an example, the kidney, which there are equivalents in other colors, but the kidney card actually has no face value, but its value increases the more kidneys you have on the board by the end of the world. So you're banking on having enough rounds to play before that third catastrophe is drawn. So there's a little risk reward with that. Other times when you're playing around with these colorless cards here, these ones will oftentimes have you do something to help another player in order to gain a greater benefit for yourself. All of these have really interesting effects that'll oftentimes cause the game to go off in directions that you weren't expecting. And I kind of want to use this little caption that they have on the rule book, because I think that this really explains what the gameplay feels like. So here we go. Welcome to Doomlings. On your first playthrough, you might overthink your hand, like there's some hidden perfect path to take. But when is this ever the case in life? Rest assured there is no perfect card to play. So for now, play something cute, try some things, and trust that the cards will help you find your way. That is so true in this game. The first time I was playing, I was really trying to catch up on strategy and figure out where I could level up my skills. And the reality of it is there's such a lovely mix of random chance in this game that you're really always concentrating on what you have in your hand at that time and not relying on anything being there for you in the next round. And that's what makes it really exciting. So I gotta say, this was a surprising treat. It seemed more complicated than it really was when I first read the rules. When I was first looking at it, I was kind of caught up in the terminology, but once I realized, okay, gene pool is your hand, trait pile is your score, and ages are your rounds, the game came into focus, and I could easily teach this to somebody in about 5 minutes. I'm very confident in that. Now, the only hang-up is when you're actually tallying up your score. I will admit, the first couple times you're playing, you're going to be taking into account the score modifiers, and it may be confusing. So one other thing that I gotta give them is that Doomlings actually includes a score tracker or score calculator on their website to help you out when you're first learning the game. I thought that was really nice, and I did make use of it when I was playtesting. And since I've been referencing the rule book already, let's take a quick look at it. It's not so much a book as it is a foldout. And normally I'm really not a fan of foldouts, particularly because these little corner folds, when they're folded into quarters, tend to wear out the fastest. You get unsightly little holes, and that's where tears begin in your rule sets. However, the print stock they chose, this is really thick, durable, and has a nice satiny feel. So whoever handled their printing, I gotta say, kudos on your selection. I mean, it's a nice full color, full bleed, smooth tooth, really satiny feel. I gotta say that it just feels very premium here, and all of the instructions are very clearly laid out. So I mean, you can't expect them to do a fancy saddle stitch booklet when you have a small card box like this, but they did go to lengths to make sure that these rules will stand the test of time, being folded and unfolded multiple times. Now, also with this starter pack, I was given a single foil trait card. Now, I suppose this is kind of more of like a collector thing. There was a regular version of this in the deck already, and I did not shuffle this in for play because I did notice that the cardstock on the foil card was actually significantly thicker than the cardstock on the cards that you'll be using for regular gameplay. And to that point, the cardstock they used is a really lovely linened cardstock, and I like linen cardstock because it has just the right texture to catch on your thumb when you're shuffling, while at the same time will slide smoothly over other cards. So I actually really like the texture of the cards, and the print quality is quite lovely. I didn't notice anything printed off-center, misaligned. The corners are all uniformly cut, so everything is smooth and shuffles nicely. I gotta say, overall, the production quality was very satisfying. And like I said, the game being easy to learn and quick to play. I mean, when you're playing with 2 people, it goes pretty fast, and I actually recommend playing with at least 4. 2 people was fun, but oftentimes it felt almost, I mean, when you're playing a competitive game like this, there is a bit of aggression towards other players. But I will say, I had a couple times when I was playing 2-player where one player would get a hand where the traits were particularly aggressive, and another player would get a number of hands where they didn't get traits that allowed them to really go back after the other player tit for tat, and it felt more like they were a punching bag. Now, funny enough, the player that felt like a punching bag in many instances ended up with a higher score at the end of the game. So in a lot of ways, it still ended up balancing itself out, but I can see where that might add a little bit of unpleasantness to some of the gameplay. But overall, I never felt so tied up in the game that if I lost, I really wasn't bothered. It was a quick, fun to play game, and it was always up in the air till the very end. You never know when the end of the game is going to come. I had one round where I actually only played like 5 or 6 because all three catastrophes came within the first few ages. Very unlucky shuffle right there. But then the majority of my games usually lasted about 10 rounds. So overall, the game has a satisfying length with a little bit of uncertainty. So I thought this was a great little treat. I love that it comes in such a small package with so much fun packed inside. If you think Doomlings sounds like a game that you would like to try out, they actually provided me with a really nice discount code. So I've got an affiliate link and a discount code in the description here. Please make use of that. You'll help me out supporting the channel and supporting Doomlings. They did a great job putting this together. Thank you very much to Doomlings for sending me out a demo copy to review. This was an absolute treat. So I gotta ask anybody else watching, have you played Doomlings? Have you tried any of their expansions? Which ones are worth my attention? Why don't you comment below and let me know. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.